Realized my entire mic system was off. Let's restart. Hi, everyone. I'm Mr. John, and welcome to Top of the Stairs podcast. Today, we're talking about the winter. Yeah. Yeah, that was a big goof on my part. In any case, a little bit about my XP with winter is I've been through a lot of winter. I've been through rain, I've been through snow. Lake snow sucks. Michael, Robert, I know you guys are watching. Lake snow sucks. You live in Michigan, you know what I'm talking about. There's one time the snow come off the lake I live by so much that it formed, like it just kept layering on. It wasn't cold. It was probably 20 degrees. It was cold enough to freeze the snow, but not give me hypothermia. And it formed a garage of snow around my car. It was so creepy. I think the best winter I've ever been though was probably Hawaii because it was partly cloudy, partly sun, partly moonlit with some light rain. It was like a warm shower. It was great. But the last decade or so, I've lived in Alaska, where we have winter 8 months out of the year. Sometimes it drops in double-digit negative, but it's more the endurance. It's like a race, not a. It's a race, not a sprint. Aw, look at that. YouTube's yelling at me. Go figure. Fuck off, YouTube. Disclaimer. So, as being a transplant of Alaska, or transplant to Alaska, somewhere along those lines, I kind of narrowed some bits of advice, like person to person, down to 3 bullet points, and then a handful more bullet points, a couple more bullet points for us dad types, right? So, know your goddamn area. End of story. It's the best advice I can give anyone that's moving anywhere. If you're going from California to Texas, if you're going from Texas to Wisconsin, if you're going from Montana to Fairbanks, Alaska, know your terrain. Okay, blind overconfidence leads to trouble. Oh no. I don't know how many times I've heard this in the last month alone. Oh no, it's not that cold outside. I'll just go outside. My kid has frostnip on her ears because it's not that cold outside.
Yeah, I mean, we've been having
Right?
a pretty warm winter, all things considered.
Yeah.
But like it's still cold out.
Yeah.
Like I'm for work. I'm frequently in contact with people from Florida, and that's one of the things that comes up
Yeah.
constantly.
They come up from Florida and know they get blind overconfidence. They just bring like a jean jacket.
Exactly.
They go out even if it's 10 degrees outside.
Yeah.
It's 20 degrees. It was 28 degrees today on University Hill on Upper Campus.
Yeah, that's still
right?
below freezing. That is still technically a risk.
Yeah.
To health. It's an easy one to mitigate by wearing a hat.
Yeah. Right? And so everyone needs to know they're comfortably cold. Cold limit. Know your limitations. Bullet point 2. Right? Know your limitations. Know what you're capable of. Know how far you can walk. Know your terrain. Terrain identification. Oh, look, that looks like black ice. Maybe I should slow down. Overconfidence versus ingenuity. Okay? Once again, blind overconfidence will get you in trouble. Ingenuity is going to get you out of the snow, is going to keep you warm, is going to keep you dry. Third point I got of advice, learning from 10 years of living in Alaska, is know your network. Mm-hmm. Everyone has 5 people. We are the sum of the 5 people we hang out with the most. Okay? And if those 5 people can't define you knowing your area and you knowing your limitations, you need to reevaluate your life situations. Pure and simple. Right? Because those 5 friends, they're going to be the ones that pull you out of the snow when you can't pull yourself out. They're going to be the ones you call when your water pipe breaks and you have no water in the middle of winter, or when you're flooded out. I think about Texas that gets the torrential rains, and California's the South when they get the torrential rains. that come down and flood their basement. They're those five. You're five people, right? Think Dunbar's number. Five people, right? Them gonna be the ones that come help you pump your basement out.
Yeah, and
End of
if
story.
you're in someone else's group of 5 people, make sure to help them when they ask.
Yeah, damn right.
Like that's just as critical as making sure that you know which people can help you is to help people when they ask you, because you're going to be that person who they're looking to in that exact situation when their house is flooded out, or maybe their snowblower broke and they need more to and they need to borrow your snowblower. Like that, they're going to remember that, and that goodwill is going to get passed on when it comes to the next thing. And if you need to haul wood and your neighbor's got a truck and is willing to help.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so moving on to kids from the dad point of view, kids don't care about the cold. I bring up my daughter again. They have that blind overconfidence, right? Kids don't care about the cold. I'm gonna wear this fashionista because I'm what's the term, bougie.
Yeah.
I'm bougie today. I'm going to school wearing this, and they're calling you at like third period. Dad, can you bring me a coat?
Do kids still say bougie?
Yeah, I got called bougie the other day when I put on something, right? So it boils down to instincts, which we don't have anymore, versus learned behavior, which is our job as dads, which is our job as adults, uncles, dads, pet dads, whatever. And same thing with our dogs. Our dogs are kind of in the same point. Children and dogs aren't much different when it comes to cold. It's learned behavior to survive in the cold.
Yep.
You know, I was doom scrolling. This reminds me, I was doom scrolling through like science people and whatnot. And I came across a clip of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Mhm.
And he's like, Gaians make me funny. Gaians make me laugh. People that worship the earth, like hippie types and whatnot, make me laugh. And I think he was on the guy with the mullet. I can't remember his name, right?
I think I've seen
Either
the
that
clip.
or Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But either case, and his host asks him why, and he goes, "Because our planet tries to kill us."
Yeah.
There's not a single point.
All the time.
There's not a single point in Alaska, in America, in China, in South America, where you can be dropped. Like you, isekai, teleport right now. Me, middle of the jungle. I got a 75% chance of dying in the first 10 minutes. Like that's anyone, anywhere. We say we love our planet, but our planet tries to kill us 75% of the time.
Yep.
And our children don't have any kind of real instincts, right? They don't have any kind of real instincts.
Yeah, being in tune with nature is just another way of saying, "Oh, I've done everything I can to not get killed by it."
I like that one. So, what can we do? So one thing that we do in my household is we have rules. I try to take all these rules that we have, like decisions and whatnot, and narrow them down to 3 simple rules or less, right? So we have 2 rules about nature. We have 2 rules about nature. Okay, my guest Ivan here can probably attest to these 2 rules.
Probably.
And I repeat these rules constantly. Every time we go fishing, every time we go hiking, camping, whatever, I repeat these rules like on loop. 1, we are not in charge. Mother Nature's in charge. Mother Nature says it's neg 20, it's neg 20. We were out camping at Chena Lakes, and Mother Nature said, guess what? You need a shower. Rain. And we went, meh. Which brings me to my second point. Don't get wet unless you don't have to.
Yeah,
if you don't have to get wet, don't get wet. The minute it started raining, we're like, okay, there's no choice. We go under the tarp as much as we can, but we're going to get wet. But when we were out fishing, oh no, we have an option to go back to our car and sit and wait for it to stop raining. Thus, don't get wet if you don't have to.
Yep. I mean, that's the real killer is getting wet. Like you can survive some pretty cold temperatures for a bit without significant damage, but the moment you get wet and you're
You're
trying
done.
to, yeah, it's
You're
done.
done. Unless you got fire or heat or something, you're
Yep,
done.
or you can just immediately take them off.
Take off layers and put on dry layers. Once
Yep.
again, getting dry.
I remember sleeping outside at like it was only like 0 below, and I couldn't sleep that night because I had sweaty socks and I had to go
I've been
inside.
there.
Yeah, I had to go inside and sleep that night because if all I had done was brought dry socks and taken those off and put them back on before going to bed, I would have been fine. But the sweat caused my feet to be even colder than it was
Yep.
already outside.
So, as he's already jumped in, he's a good buddy of mine, Ivan. Now, Ivan, he's not technically a dad, but his dad is still alive.
Yep.
Your grandfather's still alive.
One of my grandfathers
Exactly.
is still alive.
And
Yes.
and you still have regular good relationship with them.
Yep.
And if I remember correctly, you are second generation or third generation Alaska.
So
Like born and raised in Alaska. You're
So I was the first in my family born and raised in Alaska.
well, there you go. There you go. So he's got probably at least a decade plus on living in Alaskan and cold weather more than I do.
29 years of living in Alaska.
So I'm saying I've only been here 10. So
Yeah.
there you go. Close to 2 decades. So with that said, right? I'll open it up here. Compare your outlook to winter now to that of when you were a kid. What's different from your point of view?
So in a more literal sense, winters are warmer than they were.
Oh crap. I am having all sorts of technical difficulties tonight. It's great. I love it.
Winters are warmer than what it was as a kid. They're also wetter and icier than when I was a kid, which honestly is worse. I would
How so?
So I'd prefer that you can prepare pretty easy for the cold. You can buy equipment that's rated for the cold. You can keep your car warm. You can keep yourself warm in your house. But with slick roads, that's just really making that margin of error you have for driving in general all the much more worse. It makes not just your driving worse, it makes the people around you drive worse too. And that's what you have to really worry about.
I just thought of that. I didn't even think about asking. Like I always form. If you look over on the laptop, I form initial. I just form collection of questions. Kind of pick and choose. Sometimes I ask all of them. Sometimes I don't. One thing I didn't ask about. Why didn't I think about this? Okay, you bring it up.
Yeah.
Driving in Alaska. Compare how you drove as a teenager in Alaska in the winter compared to now.
Well,
Contrast. I'm curious. You have my curiosity here, sir.
So I did drive. When I drove as a teenager, I of course drove like a teenager, and I definitely remember a time when I was driving down Farmers Loop, and I was going pretty fast, and I had to stop on a dime, and I stopped, and I'm in a 2001 Hyundai Elantra, which is a pretty
boy.
small sedan if you've ever seen one before.
Oh.
And I just start
No.
and I just start spinning all across the road. And then I get lucky, and like as the spinning stops, I like pull right into a driveway that's on the side of the road, facing the road. And at that moment, I was like, "Oh shit! Like that could have been really bad."
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, and so I drive more carefully now. I drive a lot closer to the center of the road in winter than I normally would, because most of the time you want to hug the edge,
Yeah.
because then you're avoiding other people on the road. But as someone who now has a lot of knowledge about road construction working for DOT, the way we build roads with what's called a crown, meaning the flattest part of the road is actually the center of the road, because there's only a slight little grade there to make sure water falls off the road.
Oh, wow.
But
I never knew that.
The flattest part of the road's the center of the
Is
road.
the center line?
Yep. So when
funny.
when things get really icy, that's where you want to drive, because that's where you're less
At
likely
least have
to
one
go.
tire there
Yep, exactly.
and one of your drive tires.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were a kid,
Hmm.
if you think about like parents parents
Yeah.
like imparting their wisdom onto children. What were some of like so this is 20 plus years ago, so we're looking at early 2000s,
Yep.
right? What were some of the things, oh god, early 2000s, that just seems so odd saying
It
that.
is weird.
It's
It is
so
weird thinking
weird
about that.
saying
Yeah.
that, right? Right? I was still in Louisiana in that time frame,
Yeah.
dealing with rain and hurricanes and twisters on in the winter.
Yeah, I remember playing Pokemon Ruby on my Game Boy Advance, and that was 20 years ago, if not more.
So what were some of the things involving winter your dad sat there and hounded on you about?
So it was always making sure to have gloves on and hats and the right kind of jacket. That was the big one. Is like
I feel like that's a
you can
broken record.
yeah, like well that's the thing, is like you can wear a jacket, but if you're not wearing the right kind of jacket,
Well, you're
then
screwed.
yeah, so like I got my jacket right here. I'm wearing a wool lined jacket, which
Yeah,
is fantastic. Oh, as a kid, my grandpa was a trucker for Big State Logistics, so I
there you
had
go.
a trucker jacket that
Oh,
he gave me, and that was also a very warm jacket, even though it was thin. But it kept the heat in, and that's what you want. Like, you can have the thickest jacket you want, but if the heat just escapes right out of it,
oh
then
yeah. Like if it's like a windbreaker or something,
exactly, yeah.
those things suck when it comes to cold.
Yeah, and the big thing always was is that my parents tried to let me be as independent as I could, even at cold weather.
That's why Sam has frostnip. She's battling frostnip right now.
Yeah,
Because I can only broken record so many times. Put on a hat. Put on a hat. Put on a
exactly. Yeah,
hat. Put on a hat. Put on a hat. And she's like, it's only less than a quarter of a mile away. I'll be fine. There's that blind overconfidence. She just
yeah.
walks right there to Tanana to go to wrestling practice,
Mm-hmm.
and it's less than a quarter of a mile away. But she goes there and back 3 times a week with no hat on because blind
Yep.
overconfidence. Ta-da.
And that was my parents' rule: is that if it was 30 below or colder, they would drive me no matter what, no matter
Oh
where I
wow,
needed to go.
your parents are strict. I say it has to be negative. I
Yeah,
say it has to be negative. So if
the
it's like neg 2, neg 5, I'll ask, hey Sam, do you feel okay? Because my other two go to Hutch on the other side of town, so they
okay,
just ride with
yeah,
me to work.
that's pretty far. Yeah,
Yeah, that's 7 miles,
yeah.
but quarter mile, right? So yeah,
I was taking
your parents are a lot. Neg 30,
Well, I was taking the public bus to get to school for a while,
oh,
so yeah. And so like it was the rule was neg 30 because that was the point where it would start to be cold enough outside that like your hair would start to freeze to each
doesn't
other.
metal lose half its durability after spending like 12 hours in neg 30 or 20
Well,
hours
it
or something like that?
probably loses a fair bit of durability. Yeah.
Like I remember seeing those weird videos. You could probably YouTube these. You guys could probably YouTube these of guys like snapping rebar like twigs in
Yeah.
like neg 50 on the slope. It's like, oh, we got to put this rebar in this thing. They just grab the rebar and go pop and
I,
snap it in half.
I believe it.
A buddy of
Yeah.
mine showed me that when I was working for Doyen, and I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, no, play that again. And he's
Yeah.
like, yeah. And the guy just grabs the rebar and just pop.
Oh
I'm
man,
like,
the
whoa.
up on the slope, it feels completely different with those temperatures. Like I've never been like 20 below on the slope, but I've been below zero on the slope before, and it's just kind of weird how still everything feels.
That brings me to my next question, actually,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
actually I have written down, right? Um, you were DOT. You've been
Hmm.
all over the state.
Yeah.
Compare some of the biomes, the different biomes that we have just in Alaska alone,
Yeah.
because a lot of people can think but sit there in their couch watching this and go, "Huh, I wonder what's like in North Texas versus South Texas right now." But Alaska's a whole nother beast, and not a lot of people know about Alaska.
Yeah. So I was born in Valdez, Alaska, which is about 360-ish miles south of Fairbanks. And Valdez winters are completely different from Fairbanks winters. There is way more snow. The snow is super wet. It's that lake snow you were talking
Oh
about
God, I hate
earlier.
that shit,
Yeah,
man.
it is so wet, and and there's so much of it. It piles so high. My grandparents still live down in Valdez, and last year was really bad. It was so bad that they had to have a company come and move their snow because there was so much of it they couldn't move it themselves anymore,
Oh my
and
goodness.
the pile ended up being taller than their house.
Like those pictures we see of like Norway where it's like
Yeah,
the channels, it's like they live in wadis, and it's
yeah,
like, is that a snow field of wadis? And no, that's where the city plowed out channels of the
yeah,
road. People don't drive, they just walk.
yeah. So Valdez is crazy, but it's not as cold. The reason it snows all the time is because cold for Valdez is like 20 above. Most of the time it's in around 30, 40 above in the winter because they're right on the coast.
Whereas we're sitting there -30 going, look at
Exactly.
this rebar snap.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Again, another reason I prefer the cold over the wet and the snow any day. You don't have to move the cold out of your driveway to get to work. You just have to make sure you have to just make sure you plug your car in. Which, to explain for people who've never had to plug their car in before, because as I've lived in Alaska so long, I realize people aren't aware of this.
That is true.
We have to plug our car into the winter to keep the battery warm and to make sure and to keep our oil pan warm as well. We basically have heaters that are built into both of those to make sure that those stay warm so our car actually starts in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was trying to explain that to someone. They were from Canada even, and they were like, "Oh, you do you have a hybrid?" I was like, "No, like you're from Canada. Do you not know this?"
How is YouTube being stupid?
I think it's because it's YouTube.
No, yeah. Something like that. I don't know. I have a 49% packet drop. That's weird.
That is
That
weird.
is so weird. Last week was just smooth as butter, and today, again, I'm having so many technical difficulties. I don't know, man.
Yeah, and like, yeah,
I don't
God,
know.
and we talk about the cold affecting electronics,
Oh, dear
like
goodness.
it's just crazy, and like, oh, that's the other thing is you got to make sure you have the 40 below cords. You
Oh, yeah.
you got to make sure your pipes stay. Oh God, the
Because
pipes.
if rebar, if solid forged steel snaps like a twig at -30,
Yeah,
what do you think cheap thin copper inside a rubber tube is gonna do,
exactly.
right?
What do you think you're?
I just had to rip my winterization kit out because it was poorly installed by by the mechanic,
Yeah,
and a lot of it just froze. Like I took the rubber end and just pop and broke the cable like a twig, and I'm sitting here holding one end, holding the other, going, "What the hell?"
yeah. I had a cheap little air tire inflator that would plug into a cigarette lighter. So I liked having it in my car, but it had a little plastic bit that pressed down,
Yeah.
and that snapped in the cold because I was trying to inflate my tire at like 30 below, and it
Mm.
just snapped.
So so curiosity kills the cat.
Yeah,
Is your partner? I'm not quite sure the appropriate terminology.
husband.
Husband.
Yeah,
Is your husband like lifelong Alaskan or
not lifelong Alaskan. Was born in an island off of Kodiak.
okay? So how do you?
Mhm.
What are some because guiding and teaching our partners and things we know that
Yeah,
they don't is much similar to guiding and teaching children. No offense to
I,
your husband, no
oh, it's
offense to
so
my wife,
so
no
so
offense to
true though.
anyone else, but it's very true, right? We
Yeah,
lead our family, we lead by example, right?
I have
So
the perfect example for this
how
actually.
how do you convey this honey, it's -30, you should
Yeah.
dress up? How do you convey that to your husband?
Usually in extreme panic. One of the situations we had. So we bought our house about 3 years ago,
Hmm.
and so we bought it in October, and so in October about 3 years ago, and so then a few months after that, we had a situation where our pipes froze,
Oh no.
and we were trying to figure out why because like we had been running the fireplace, we had been running our heater, like the house didn't get cold, it didn't run out, we didn't run out of heating fuel. I thought originally it had been a zone control, but what had happened was we had insulated curtains that went down and they went in front of the baseboard heater.
Oh
And
no.
so
Oh no. Please tell me your window didn't shatter.
the window was fine.
Oh.
The window was fine, luckily. But what had happened was the baseboards had been radiating heat, and it had just been bouncing off the insulated
Off the
curtain.
insulated curtains into the. That's why I asked if your window
Yep.
shattered.
No, the window was fine.
We had that happen in our upstairs bathroom here. I took it
Ah.
was like -50. This was not this
Yeah.
winter, but last winter when it was like we had that real cold snap when it was like -50.
Yep.
I took a shower to get ready for. I took a shower to get
yeah.
ready for church, and I step out of the shower and I opened the bathroom door to let all the steam in, and I started hearing that sound. I'm like, what the? And again, we have insulated. We just hang layers of curtains,
Yep.
but they're not really insulated curtains. They're just layered. But I pull them back and I just see the glass spider webbing,
Oh.
and I'm like, oh. And I called them and they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. And I
Yeah.
think they forgot about the work order because they never came and fixed it. And I'm like, get ready to move. And
But like, so that was the thing I didn't know. So I had to communicate that to my husband. But as we were fixing that, the freeze had moved down into my husband's room. And so I'm going into my husband's room with the heat gun trying to warm up the baseboards. And I realized that he had been storing a bunch of stuff up against the baseboard. And so when he got home, I had to explain it's like, hey, like, you can't store things against the baseboard. Like, this is what happens when you do. Like, please be more aware of it in the future. I've gone ahead and moved everything off the baseboard. And generally, he's pretty good about that, about remembering those things. We had a situation where, you're gonna get a laugh out of this because this is a crazy one. We had a drain freeze from yeah, right. So we had a drain freeze. We have our kitchen sink, and above our
Yeah.
and we have our kitchen sink, and below our kitchen is our washer and dryer room.
Yeah.
And then the main drain is just running straight through.
Running straight down. Yeah.
So one of the quirks of that washer and dryer room is because there's a pipe running down the middle of it. There is not enough baseboard heater coverage in that room. So if we leave that room closed at 30 below for multiple days in a row, that drain will freeze, which we found out. And so,
oh my goodness,
and so we had to warm it up, and that was a pain in the butt to warm up, because as we discovered, that drain actually used to go into goes hard 90s into another room and then goes back into the.
So it just does this weird zigzag through your walls?
Because it used to hard 90 into the room next door because there used to be a kitchenette in that room.
Oh.
And then it would go back into the washer-dryer room.
That makes sense.
But the kitchenette's not there anymore, so we didn't even think of it. And so now that's another thing we have to do where it's just like, okay, well, we have to keep this door open when it's 40 below. Otherwise,
yeah.
Yep, and you want to talk about steel losing its weakness. Pipes freezing is bad, but the worst part is actually unthawing them. Because that's when the pipes burst is when you're unthawing it, because that's what happened with us is like luckily we didn't have to replace anything because it snapped on the top of the pipe, not the bottom of the pipe.
Oh, okay.
But that's what happened is we unthawed it and the pipe just contracted and then and then there's leakage. Yeah.
Yep. Next thing you hear.
Yep, exactly. And
That's
now
the weirdest thing. That's the weirdest sound I've ever heard. Is that popping sound of metal in a wall.
Yeah.
That is the creepiest, weirdest, oddest. It's just sitting there, and all of a sudden, pop. And it's like, what was that? And then you got water running down your wall because the pipe burst. And
you got to get used to those kinds of sounds too when you live here. Like that's one that. So my husband has lived in Alaska for a little bit, but they've bounced around to like Kentucky, Germany.
So you can probably relate to what I was saying about like it's like torrential downpour, 40 degrees, twisters and black skies. Who summoned the dragon?
So my husband's dad was in the army through his entire childhood, so they bounced around a lot until they eventually came back to Alaska. And one of the weird, I think I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this?
Talk about your husband bouncing around.
Bouncing around. It was something about The
Talking about weird
cold.
sounds and weird
Oh,
sounds.
that's right. It's weird sounds. So one of the things that it took my husband a while to get used to is when the house settles, when the temperature changes,
Oh yes,
and you start
that's
to hear
such a
the
weird sound.
and you start to hear the woodwork creak. And like that used to freak him out, and I just had to be like, no, it's just the house settling. Or like, well, if we have a wood stove insert in our fireplace, so we'll run that all day. But when that stops running at night, and the heater, the baseboards are going or kicking on for the first time that night, they'll be loud because they'll have all that water running through them again, and so you'll get the pop,
Crunch, crunch,
yeah,
crunch, compression.
yeah,
It sounds like it's that sound they use in submarine movies. That
yeah. It's exactly like that. Yeah, and so that's another thing about getting used to your areas, getting used to your environment. You want to know which sounds are good sounds, which sounds are
bad
bad.
sounds. Okay, so every guest, I always try to ask a fun question. I
Okay.
don't know if you've gone back and watched some of the other podcasts. All right, so fun question.
Yeah.
Open up your imagination and let it ride, right?
Yeah.
Let it ride. Okay. All expenses,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in the world, you and your husband. Only stipulation, you have to go in winter of that region.
Easy.
That region. Where are you going and why?
Spain.
Spain in Spain's winter.
Yep, we already did it. First off, we went to Spain in winter one year. We went in January.
You have my curiosity because not a lot of people talk about Spain. The only
Oh.
time I ever hear anyone talk about Spain is going to some town south of Madrid that's pretty popular for big catfishing. That's
Interesting.
That's it. It's like some river that runs south of Madrid.
Oh, I don't know
It's
the
like
name
Madrid.
of the river.
I don't know the name of the river either. It was on River Monsters. It was on River Monsters,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much the only thing I ever. So you have my curiosity. Tell us about winters in Spain, so that from your experience.
Yeah, so it's empty because everyone in Spain's on winter holiday because they still think it's kind of cold outside. And so there's it's not as active, like not every place is open. So when we went to Spain, we mostly stayed in a place called Alicante, which is it's along the coast. It's south of Barcelona, but fantastic food, just amazing food. Honestly, I had veal for the first time in probably 15 years there, and it was like $22.
Holy moly!
Yeah. It was amazing. It was amazing. The cost of Spain is pretty decent, especially if you're just vacationing. And I would never live there because their economy's in a death spiral. But it's great to vacation there.
There's a lot of places in the world that are nice places to visit.
Yeah.
Fuck living there, man.
Yeah.
For real.
So,
I gotta say, look at that. One mechanical issue after another today. I swear. Look you. Yeah, keep going. I got the mic.
Yeah, so I really like Spain. The temperature in the winter is perfect, honestly. Like the coldest it gets is 60 above. And that's fine for me. That's cold. That's warm enough. That's warm enough I'm not going to freeze my butt off, but cold enough I can wear a sweater.
There you go.
Oh.
Yep.
Maybe not.
Maybe I. Here.
There
you go.
Okay, I can hold it too if you want.
It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, so I like Spain in the winter. I think the temperature is just perfect. I love the food there. I really love Spanish architecture because especially on the southern coast of Spain, it has that Moorish, it has that Islam and Muslim
that blend.
Influence.
Yeah,
exactly, and you don't get that in the rest of Europe. Like I like.
And do they? Is it built well? Like you think about Rome, Colosseum, Roman architecture, whatnot. Yeah. They built it for their environment. Would you say that their architecture is built to handle their winters?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was quite built to the Roman standard, but it was definitely built very well, and it's very gorgeous, and it's interesting to see the differences because because my husband really wants to go back to Germany. And it's Germany's got some cool stuff. They got some cool castles. But it's still a castle in Germany looks largely the same as a castle in the rest of Europe, but it's a little different in Spain because again they have that influence from the Middle East and from Africa back when they had conquered half of Spain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like being on the Mediterranean just in general. Mediterranean food's great.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
love
it
the
is.
beach. The beaches were empty when we went.
Empty beaches in the winter. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah,
Right?
right? Yeah, no, it was great.
So, all right. So I know you're a pet dad.
Mhm.
So compare contrast pets to significant others to children to
Yeah.
yourself as a child when it comes to winter. Do pets have that similar blind overconfidence that us humans have? And how do you like adapt for pets?
So we have 3 dogs
Uh-huh.
in our house right now. We have yeah. We have our I guess technically she's the youngest, but she's still like 3. Is named Clover.
Uh-huh.
Um she's a German Shepherd Rat Terrier mix.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and she
That's a fun.
yeah, a really dedicated father, a really surprised mother. Um she has a lot of energy and she loves playing outside no matter how cold it is. And she will do that where it'll be 20 below and she'll just start running around outside and she'll want to be outside, and then when it gets too cold she'll hide under the deck where there's no snow. Oh, is it
Ah,
did it break? Or?
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
You probably want that bit.
Yeah, I probably want that bit. Let's just take it off
Yeah,
the stand.
we can just do this.
We'll just take it off the stand. I appreciate your patience with this.
Ah.
This is a little awkward.
Yeah.
My arm broke like that. That's really weird.
Yeah, so she'll stay outside as much as she could, especially if there's another dog out she can bark at.
So definitely that blind overconfidence of, oh, it's an egg 30. I don't care. I'm saying hi to the neighbor's tag.
Exactly. Or then our the smallest dog we have, Luca, who's a Chihuahua. If it gets too cold, if it gets too cold,
You got a Chihuahua in Alaska.
yeah.
Are you okay?
No, it's my grandparents have 3. Yeah.
My mom, the last decade of my mom's life, she had Chihuahuas, and they were a handful in the winter.
They can be, yeah. So Luca, if it gets too cold for him outside, will just roll over on his side and just plop in the ground and start whining. And so those are all things you have to be ready for it. Sometimes you have to just like go outside and grab them and bring them in and be like, nope, like it's time for you to come inside. Or you have to have you have to be very specific on the time you let them out and you let them roam around even when it's cold. You gotta, even if it's 20 above and they're probably going to be fine, you still have to like keep that awareness. You have to listen for them if they start to whine or scratch at the door. Luca in particular doesn't like going outside when it's very cold, and so we have to try to let him outside more regularly than normal because otherwise he'll start pissing in the house.
No, yeah. We put our dogs on leads.
Yep.
And because we don't have a fence, and so it's hurry up. God, I feel like I'm hurting cats, even though they're dogs. It's like, come on, hurry up. I feel like over encouraging helps. It doesn't help.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't help, but it makes me feel better because I'm sitting there shivering right there with them.
Well, and sometimes I have to go outside with them. So we have a fenced-in backyard, so we don't put them on leads. So sometimes I have to just go outside with them and stand there with them until they use the bathroom, or otherwise they won't do it because they'll be like, oh well, you're inside. Clearly that means we can come inside. So I'll have to go out there and be like, nope, we're staying out here until you guys use the bathroom.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
All right, so final little bit of the podcast. I asked you for 10 random words the other day, right?
I was wondering about this.
Yes. So I didn't have a chance to fully vet the whole word, so we're just going to talk through it.
Yeah.
I used Grok, that is the AI in the X platform, and gave him the words and said, "Give me a random word from these," and it gave me the word ostracized.
They called it grok. They call it grok though, really?
Yeah, GROK.
Yeah, no, do you know where the term grok originates from?
Now I'm drawing a mind blank. Go ahead,
Okay.
educate us all because I'm really curious.
Yeah, so the term grok originates from Robert Heinlein's like 1920s classic science fiction novel Stranger in a Strange Land. He describes grok in there as a Martian term that means to drink water, but that's not actually what it means. It's sort of the whole book's about trying to identify what grok means. And so and like cuz it ends up meaning a lot of things, but like a
Like,
lot
dude.
yeah, so but like in the modern is so but like in the modern day, designers will sometimes use the word grok to basically mean like the ability of someone to innately understand something upon looking at it.
Oh wow.
Kind of deriving from that Heinlein idea of like, oh well, what does grok mean? It's like, well, you know what it means when you use it.
It's like the ultimate question. Or the
Exactly,
ultimate
yeah.
answer. It's like the ultimate answer, the ultimate question.
Yeah.
But what is the ultimate question?
So that's why I find it
Grok.
interesting that they named the
Yeah.
AI grok.
Yeah, they named their AI Grok and it picked ostracize.
Okay.
So, how do you think the word ostracize applies to the word winter? Ostracize, winter.
Interesting.
What comes to mind?
Ostracize in winter. So for me, I think of people working like so in DOT we have a lot of we construction work in Alaska can be very seasonal
Yes.
because we only have such a small limited amount of time we can work on our roads
You
before
can't
they
lay
freeze
concrete in the
over.
winter.
Yeah, you can't even lay concrete in the autumn sometimes because of how cold it is. We have very specific specs on that one. So like what I think is like all those construction workers who can't take the winters off and they essentially get ostracized to the slope to work up there because that's the only work that's available for them.
Oh wow. So they get ostracized.
Yeah. They
It's like
they basically have to leave town for months to work up on the slope.
you get out.
Yeah.
Go away.
It's
We
the,
do not want you here. Go away.
it's the only work available. And I know for a lot of apprentices to our trades too, like when they first become apprentices, the slope's the only place they can work because it's the only place that's still looking for people.
Even in the winter
Yep.
in their profession.
Yeah.
That's odd. You know, when I think the word ostracize and winter in the same context,
Mhm.
I think about all the old the historical stories from ancient Europe
Mhm.
and whatnot. It's winter. We need to ostracize ourselves from this region and these
Yep.
people. Let's go south. Native American culture in the Great Plains. Oh, it's
Mhm.
winter. We need to go this way. Why?
Yeah.
Because the weather's bad. That is bad land. We don't go to that land in the winter. That's bad land.
Yeah.
Or these are bad people. Why? Why are they bad people? Because they stay in the winter. They live in the snow. We don't live in the snow. Our people are
Yeah.
not snow people.
We need to avoid
We
them.
won't trade with
Yeah.
them in the winter because they turn into animals in the winter. We
Oh,
go that way.
yeah, and like it's also interesting because like so my parents live in Esther right now, which is for people who don't know, it's about 10 miles outside of
Yeah, a little
Fairbanks.
bit.
It's a small community, but like when it becomes winter and that hill is super icy and you can't get up there, those people basically become ostracized as well because
Yeah.
no one's going out to visit them if they have to because going there becomes very dangerous.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about the big three in the word ostracize.
Hmm.
Normally I have the definition pulled up and we talk about, how it relates to the topic. And now we're going to talk about the big three. So I'm going to say ostracize
Hmm.
and gaming and or tabletop gaming.
Okay.
I know where my brain would go with that, but I'm curious to see where your brain would go with that.
Yeah, my brain goes to so in the Fairbanks gaming communities long enough to know when this happens. But like there is always the person that everyone hates playing against. No one wants to pair with them in a tournament. everyone's like, "Oh God." They're the people who make the who they're the people. I'm thinking about Warhammer tournaments specifically where this is true, but honestly, it's true with all gaming. Where you're like, "Oh, I kind of want to lose my first round so that my second and third round are against well-adjusted people."
Not these hyper aggressive
Yep,
jackwads,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. And so, like, that's what I think is like eventually those people do get the hint when no one wants to play with them and they just kind of naturally get ostracized. Or sometimes there's been situations where, like, the venue has to step in and be like, nope, you can't come here anymore because you're being too much of a dick and people don't want to play with you or be around you.
That reminds me. That reminds me. You bringing that up actually reminded me. I was going to talk about traveling around
Mm,
gaming, and so I'm the
yeah.
stranger walking into the shop,
Yeah.
and so it's like, oh, hey, I'm like immediately ostracized because I'm a stranger. But you talking about the win at all cost guy reminded me. I don't even know what happened to this dude,
Mhm.
right? Um, so Carl and I encountered him when both of us were at Fort Hood. I don't
Okay.
know what it's called now, right? And he was a win at all cost guy, but he would go to the local tournament,
Mhm.
the local funsies tournament. They weren't
Yeah.
hyper competitive. No one had any real lists. Everyone kind of thought brought what they thought was competitive,
Yeah.
and they would go. This guy one day legit cat knocked the glass off the counter to the whole table. Like arm swipe. What? Fuck this goddamn game.
Wow.
Like his dice were shit. Like he was just getting diced.
Yeah.
In modern terms, we just call it you're getting diced,
Yeah.
right? He threw the largest temper tantrum I've ever seen a 30-year-old man throw and stormed out of the shop. And he got himself ostracized due to his bad behavior.
Yeah.
The shop owner, a retired first sergeant, gathered up his stuff and put it behind the counter, and we all
Yeah.
just kind of like, "Ah," and kept playing. Right? Fucked up thing is he ended up following us up here.
Ugh.
He ended up following us up here. If you remember way back in '09,
Mhm.
um, he was no, he was still playing Eldar. He was the tall. He was really tall. He had a like a goatee type beard. He didn't have long hair.
I think I remember
Yeah,
who you're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
He had that win at all cost, and he flipped the
Yeah.
same attitude here. And we both looked at Bill.
Yeah.
Carl and I both looked at Bill and was like, we saw him, and we told Bill about him. And was like, look, this we know who that is,
Yeah.
right? And Bill's like, okay, I'll watch out for him. But then he did that same thing and stormed out of the shop. And we're
Yeah.
like, yep, you're not allowed back in the comic shop anymore.
Yep.
I think he eventually moved away shortly after there.
Probably. Yeah. And
So
like, no offense to Carl, but Carl sometimes borders on that as
mm,
well. So like, it's crazy that like even he was like, no, this guy's too much.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're throwing models and throwing dice and cussing out
So
your opponent and
it
whatnot,
was so before you
you,
got here, this would have been like,
'07 then '08 because I
oh
got
no,
here in
no,
'09.
oh no, this would have you would have actually been around then because this would have been in like 2010, 2011.
Okay,
There we had a guy who flipped a table with models on it, and he definitely got kicked out of the shop as well. And he was already a known factor to be, we'll generously call it abrasive.
it's probably the same guy.
No, this guy was short.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No, the guy we're talking
yeah,
about was long,
this
was
guy,
tall. He
yeah,
was lankety tall.
this guy was short, didn't have a beard.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. All right, so moving on to the next big word.
yeah,
Ostracized and outdoors. Outdoor activities, fishing, hunting, hiking,
yeah.
camping, whatnot. What comes to mind when I say ostracized and let's go hunting?
That person who's got no friends to go hunting with.
Yeah, it's
The
fair.
person no one wants to go hunting with because either they don't help with anything or they're just a hindrance.
What are they called? What was the term my buddy used the other day? Camp bunnies.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
camp bunny. He comes, he's pretty, and he sits there, and you just pet him, but he
yeah,
doesn't help around camp. Dude, make the fire. No, I'm tired. Always an excuse. Always something to
yeah,
squeak about.
yeah,
Camp bunny.
yeah. Like
It's
what?
funny.
So
The guy who doesn't help clean the fish. He'll go sit on the
oh
boat
god,
with
that's the
you.
worst.
Those are
Yeah.
the worst types of people, man.
So I will help my dad butcher a caribou
Yeah.
when he gets one, but I won't go hunting with him because I know personally that like I don't that's not what I enjoy. Like I'm going to be miserable and I'm not going to want to help with anything. I'm not going to want to haul it. I'm not going to want to clean
So
it.
a little bit of respecting and knowing your limitations and
Exactly.
ostracizing yourself from that particular point
Yep.
of activity.
Yeah.
So
But I love the butchering part. I'm good at that.
yeah, I'm kind of the same way when it comes down to like Kenai and whatnot, because people go out on the boats. Once again, rule number 2, right? Don't get wet unless you don't have to. Even in the summer, I'm only getting wet if I don't have to, right?
Exactly.
If
Yeah.
I can sit there and put my waders on and dip net from the shore and get the same amount I can as if I
Yeah.
put all my wet weather gear on and climb on your boat and get soaking wet for 12 hours,
Yep.
I'm gonna pick the shore option, man.
Yeah, or
and I'm self ostracizing myself from that activity,
yeah.
but I still like will help butcher the fish. I'll still help clean the fish
Yep.
and fillet the fish and pack up the coolers and whatnot. So
Yeah, or what I'll do is I have a neighbor. He's Air Force, came up from South Carolina about a year and a half ago. At this point, he was also someone I had to help guide through winter.
guide through winter.
Yeah, it was
It takes
yeah.
a community, man. It
It
does.
does, and like what had happened was I was out shoveling my driveway. I saw his truck out there, and him and his girlfriend were putting stuff in the house. I look at the license plate. I'm like, that's a South Carolina license plate. And like we were about to have a winter storm in a couple days, and so
Oh,
I
is that one of those storm or one of those apocalypse we had?
it wasn't that bad. It was
Oh, okay.
after that because this was in like late March.
Okay.
And so I went up to, so I just went up to them. I introduced myself. I was like, "Hey, like you guys know there's a winter storm coming, right?" And they were like, "No, we didn't. Like thank you for giving us the
You were
heads
being
up."
neighborly.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
then, a couple days later when he's shoveling his driveway, and it's a small driveway, but he's still out there trying to shovel it with like with like a dirt shovel with a dirt spade.
Dirt spade.
And so I go out there, I grab my scoop, and I say, "Hey, man, like, just use this. Like, you can borrow it for now. Just like make sure you should just get one yourself, though."
$20 at Walmart, man.
Yeah,
We're good,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, and so he ended up getting himself a scoop. But like one of the things I'll do is like he goes hunting and fishing a lot. So I'll trade food with him for like equipment I have around the house. Like I had a
That's good on you, man. That's
yeah,
good community stuff.
yeah, like I had an extension for my chimney sweep, and he couldn't find one anywhere. And so like I was like, "Hey, you can just borrow mine." And he was like, "Oh, sweet." And I got some salmon fillets out of it.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know much about the beauties of 3D printing and whatnot, but that's
I
the third
I
word.
do know a little
That's
bit.
the
Yeah.
third word. So when it comes to the word ostracize and 3D printing, what comes to mind?
Ooh.
I know that's a stumper because I stumped myself. I'm like,
That,
I can't think of anything honestly. I mean,
that is kind of a stumper.
if I had to think about it, 3D printing is like any other pop culture. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the only thing I can think of associating the word ostracize with 3D printing. Is 3D printing is like any other piece of pop culture in a sense that it can create things, it can make things,
Yeah.
and I guess you could be ostracized from certain communities
Yeah.
within the 3D printing world for wanting to print certain things
Or
or talk to some. Like, I'm not going to go up to a guy that does cosplay helmets
yeah.
and try to engage him with, I don't know, let's make some Mandalorian armor,
Or
right?
the other
His
one.
shtick, his niche
Yeah.
is making the Spider-Man helmet and the Deadpool helmet and the whatnot. So if I try to engage him about, hey man, let's make some coasters, he's gonna be like, right? I'm gonna get ostracized. That's really the only thing I can think of.
The other one I could see is that if someone makes like if someone consistently makes some like really bad I don't know the file type you guys
Yeah, they
use.
make a bad file.
Yeah, but they make like they consistently make really bad files and then try to sell them and try to
Oh,
make money off of them. I could see
yeah,
like
I
maybe
can
that be
see,
a situation
because it is a business. A lot of people do
Yeah,
strive to make 3D printing a business. So you bad business practices get
exactly. I
ostracized.
could
At that
see
point,
yeah. the
Right,
community
the
coming
community
to
coming together and be
yeah,
like, no.
in the traditional sense of ostracization, where like it's a community led thing where the community votes and says, hey, like you need to be away from this, like you are
That
not doing good for us.
what you saying that just reminded me actually. Funny story. And shame on this person. Shame on this lady for doing this. I swear. Right? The last craft fair
Hmm.
that was at the Shoppers Forum Mall.
Okay, yep,
Okay. There was a lady who had a booth
I went to that one.
and she had a bunch of different stuff. And some of the stuff was 3D printed.
Hmm.
And a friend of mine who kind of is following me through the 3D printing journey, a very close friend of mine,
Yeah.
right? Close enough to be family. She sees it and was like, huh, I recognize that. I recognize that.
Mm.
And then she goes on Facebook Marketplace and sees the same lady who's running the booth selling the same thing on Facebook Marketplace. Well, a lot of the files fall under Creative Commons license.
Yeah.
And so some of them can be marked as non-commercial,
Yep.
private use only. For example, these cubes here, I don't know, right? It's for a game. It's for a game, right? All I did was scale it up, right? And it's just a token to tell you what season it is. The game
Yeah.
is Everdell.
Never heard of it.
It's a fun city building, anthropomorphic city building game.
Okay.
Think
Like Redwall-esque.
think Redwall before Redwall built the Abbey,
Okay. Okay.
right? As they're building up their society,
Okay.
and then you play one of the four creatures.
That actually sounds kind of cool.
This spot it is really fun. It's on Steam, it's on phones, it's on Switch, it's on consoles, and like $40 at Barnes and Noble. Point being, you have to track winter, spring, summer, fall. And the game is over when you finish fall, right? So
Yeah.
four rounds. This file was marked as non-commercial.
Hmm.
I cannot sell this file, no matter if I mold it, modify it, or
Yep.
whatever. I cannot sell this file online. And that's what this
Yeah.
lady was doing.
Oh.
And then when my friend called her out, Facebook was like, ostracized. Boom, you broke community standards,
Yep.
community regulations. Boom. And then next thing you know, posts are disappearing. She closed up her booth
Yeah.
a day early at the craft fair. She got ostracized quick.
Yeah, and in some cases, the quickness of that really sucks because, like, copyright law is complicated. She may not have known immediately, but like, I'm assuming that like that she probably wasn't as receptive to that criticism
Yeah,
because it's pretty easy to be like, oh shoot, I didn't know.
I
Let
didn't
me
know.
take
Let me
this
take
off.
this product away.
Yep.
As opposed to doing what she did. She got snarky, deleted posts,
Exactly,
disappeared, kind of got ostracized real quick.
Yeah, because
So.
it look, guys, time for me to get on a soapbox.
Go ahead, man. That's what this is all about.
There's nothing wrong with admitting that you were wrong or that you did something wrong. In fact, it's one of the healthiest things you can do is to say, "Oops, my bad."
Yeah, admit your mistake and move on with your life.
Exactly. Like
realize you messed up.
Yeah.
Say, hey, my bad. Let me help fix it.
It's better for you. It's better for the people around you. The people around you will be so happy if you can just be like, "Oh, that was my fault," because then they're not blaming themselves, thinking that they did something wrong. They're not angry at you knowing you did something wrong.
Especially in the winter when your house wants to talk to you, pipes are freezing and everything.
And you're stuck with each other because you can't go outside because it's 40 below.
All right, man. Well, I think we'll wrap it up right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a blast having you over.
Of course.
And as we go on, maybe I'll have you back.
Yeah, we'll see.
So
we'll talk about summers in Alaska.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about summers in Alaska if you're not out on the road and whatnot.
I'm not anymore.
Okay, so that concludes our episode of episode 9, Winters in Alaska. Next week will be episode 10. We'll be talking about dads and social media, and I'm gonna have a new dad, or try to have a very close church friend of mine come on. He's very tech savvy. He's a physicist, and he knows his internet very well. Until then,